but we're going to get started just so we can honor everyone's time and you know, some people will be getting to bed after this, some people will be having dinner. So welcome, my name is Mel and I am co-founder and the wearer of many hats for Banyan Tree Women's Collective. We are a 501c3 based out of the San Francisco Bay Peninsula. And we believe that wellness, choice, access, and experience is a human right, that everybody should be afforded these tools. We're all unique individuals. We all heal differently. We all work through life differently. And it's all about having those wellness tools in our tool belt to pull from. The topic today is really important to me because I know for me, cannabis is truly a source of medicine and a source of healing. And I am so thankful that that is legal. I'm still I still try to wrap my heart around the fact of how many people are in prison for this amazing plant that should be free. That's a whole nother story. But it's confusing now with all of the stores and all of the, you know, CBD, CBN, THC, this, that. You just can't make sense of it. And because I love this medicine so much, I wanted to bring in an expert that also loves this medicine to share with you so we can debunk some myths and so we can get you guys on track to use this medicine effectively and honorably and to be able to use it as a healing tool. So without any further ado, I'm going to pass this along to Donna, and we're really grateful to have her in our space today. Let's welcome her. Hello, Donna.
Hey, thanks so much, Melissa, for the introduction. Can you hear me okay?
You're good.
Okay, great, good. Well, I'm the one who put in, I'm from Key West. That's where I'm sitting right now, the southernmost city. I split my time between here and Colorado. So, being in a digital online business affords you the luxury to do that, and I'm very, very grateful. I'm going to put up a slide presentation, and you know, for the next 45 minutes or so, I want to walk through what I consider the basics. And when Melissa and I were discussing what this should be about, we really thought it would best serve everyone to really make this an intro class. Very simple, you know, for the newbies, for people that don't even know what they don't know. So even if you're more of a cannabis consumer already, I hope that there's some little pearls of wisdom in here for you as well. But we really geared this for people who are just starting out on this journey and are kind of bewildered when they're standing in the, you know, in a dispensary or in front of the CBD aisle, and you're like, oh my gosh, what do I buy? So having said that, I am going to put up the slides there. Okay. And the way I want to frame this up for you is to really talk about cannabis within the context of what I call the holistic healing paradigm, because what's happening in this business and in this area of medicine, and it's being done by physicians, marketing people, industry professionals. Everyone treats cannabis like it's the silver bullet. And while it's a great healing tool, it is not the only thing. It really has to be viewed as part and parcel of a lot of other modalities that you're bringing into your journey for health. So I worry when I hear doctors say to somebody, oh, here, take this tincture, try this CBD, with no discussion about what you're eating, what's your stress level, how you're exercising, what your movement is, you know, what your home like, you know, what's your alignment like in your body, all these other things that go into making us well or not well. So I'm coming at this from looking at cannabis through a more holistic lens. And that really is the overview of everything that we do at the Holistic Cannabis Academy. So, like most people, I came into cannabis through a personal health crisis, a breast cancer diagnosis. And I find everybody in this business, whether you're a patient yourself or you're working in the business, you've come to it because you've had some personal experience with how the plant can heal, or you've seen it happen for someone in your family, a close friend. So that's what makes you a believer. You get it. And that was my situation as I talked to oncologists and breast surgeons asking about cannabis and its potential role in breast cancer management. You know, you get the deer in the headlight look. So I thought, aha, there's an opportunity to really create an educational program geared for the health professional. And that was really the genesis for creating the Holistic Cannabis Academy. So people like Melissa and other practitioners who are health coaches, yoga instructors, nurse practitioners, dietitians, these are the kind of folks who are looking at cannabis and realizing, you know, this is something else I can add to my practice. And then we also have consumers who are really just trying to educate themselves further. And they too have found their way to us because they understand this holistic approach to their health. So for me, I was somebody who really combined conventional treatment, surgery, radiation, with a lot of other modalities, a ketogenic diet, energy work, cannabis, the whole ball of wax. And I'll never know really what was the route to my success. And you know what? That's okay, because here I am 7 years later, very healthy and spreading the word to other people. So that's where I'm coming with this. So, you know, I started out as a registered dietitian in the Army. So that's quite a ways to being a cannabis educator. And so the journey has been one over the last 6 years with the Academy. It's all online, and it's been so much fun to meet such a very interesting group of people. And we're now moving into doing retreats for women, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later at the end. So stick with me here. And I think that, you know, at the end of this, you'll come out of this with a little more clarity. And I'm happy to take questions at the end. We will make a slide deck available to you. I will put you'll see my email in a couple of different places, and it's right here on this screen. And I'll put it in the chat box at the end. If you would like the slide deck, I'm happy to you because there's a lot of links that I'm suggesting you go to for future information. But what I can't answer tonight is personal health questions. So while all of you may have a unique situation, a health problem, yourself or a loved one, that's just not something that we can handle here tonight. So happy to take more generalized questions at the end. Okay. This is one of my favorite slides because it demonstrates what a diverse group of people are drawn to cannabis. This is in my kitchen in Colorado. And a couple of summers ago, I was doing weekend retreats where folks would come in and we'd do an immersion cooking class in my kitchen. We'd go to a hemp farm, a dispensary. And it just reminds me of how many different types of people, just like in this audience tonight, I'm sure you're quite a diverse group. Here I had people who were coming as practitioners who wanted to learn more so they could add cannabis coaching and counseling to their existing practice. I had a few people in this group who just had lifelong health problems and they just couldn't get to the bottom of it. And cannabis was their last stop. They were there as consumers to educate themselves. And then I had a who were launching a CBD brand. So this world of cannabis really is quite interesting because it cuts across all demographics, all geography, and really brings together people who are on a path to wellness, but coming at it from a lot of different directions. So, as a business owner and an educator, that has been really quite fun for me. Now, I think it's worth pointing out that, you know, in the late 1800s, early 1900s in the US, cannabis was widely available and used therapeutically. I love these bottles. This is exactly what you would have found in an apothecary back in the day. This is not a new thing, really. And in fact, if we go further back, cannabis has been used for thousands of years in Indian cultures, in Chinese medicine. And in fact, we thought it was so important that people really have an appreciation for the history of cannabis that two of the modules in our program are on the Ayurvedic and the Vedic uses of cannabis. This is ancient medicine. So and I'm going to just take a moment to give you a very quick timeline on why we are where we are today in the US with this plant. Because hemp farming was very prolific in the late 1800s, early 1900s. We were growing hemp to make clothing and rope and all kinds of building materials. And then what started to happen in the 1930s, we had two things kind of converged that really created a societal change that brought us to the current drug policy that we have right now in this country. We had a shift to lumber being used and cultivated for a lot of the products that hemp had been utilized for. So we had the advent of lumber and the paper industry coming on stream. So in order to move that front and center, hemp became a heavily taxed crop. So it was no longer advantageous for farmers to grow hemp. It just wasn't worthwhile anymore. Combined with that, we were coming out of the roaring 20s. And so with that was sort of a culture that certainly promoted alcohol and the use of marijuana as a recreational enjoyment drug, the both of these things. And so as a society, we were looking at marijuana as something that seemed a little unsavory. Oh, this is not what mainstream Americans should be using. And then we had this other business force at work, and we had these two things come together. The Marijuana Tax Act was passed in 1937. And then in 1970, with the Controlled Substance Act, now we have marijuana as a Schedule I drug right next to heroin. And that is where it has remained from a federal standpoint. And it only is in the last 10, 15 years that state by state, we have now moved cannabis into something that's legalized. But again, of course, it is still a Schedule I drug, federally speaking. So as of right now, and this is changing all the time, which is a wonderful thing, we have 19 states that legalized adult use, or what we would call recreational use. And in fact, just yesterday, I think it was, Alabama was the latest state to add to the list of medical legalization. So now we're, including Alabama, I think we're up to 37 states. So you can see that the train has left the station. This is slowly moving ahead, and every year we have more and more legislation that's being introduced. Now, I will say, just so you understand this, because I know we have people here from various states and probably out of the country as well. Just because a state has legalized cannabis medically, that varies in your state as to what qualifying health condition is on the list. So what I mean by that is, in California, there is a list of qualifying health conditions that would allow a physician to give you a recommendation for a medical cannabis card. It's not called a prescription, it's a recommendation. But that list of qualifying health conditions may be very different in New Jersey or Colorado or now in Alabama. So that's why it's so difficult to make blanket statements when teaching people, because everything is so state specific. So I just want you to understand that depending on where you live, most of the states put this under the umbrella of their public health department. So it is fairly easy to go to your state website under public health and drill down and see what are the qualifying health conditions. But that truly varies state by state. So as I said earlier, I want you to really think about the role of cannabis hand in glove with things like an anti-inflammatory diet, of doing energy work, with acupuncture, with yoga, all of these other modalities, because when you layer these things one on top of each other, you are going to get a much better patient outcome than doing it as a one-off. And I've been a registered dietitian for more years than I would like to remember. And I've been talking to people about their diet for a very long time. And it's very difficult to get people to change their eating habits. But when you frame it up for people that it's really about the big picture of multiple modalities, it kind of takes the pressure a little bit off of just focusing on one of these and getting people engaged in at least a few of these different things. So this is how we teach cannabis at the Academy. We have modules on cannabis and acupuncture, cannabis and nutrition, because truly this is integrative medicine at its best. So here's where we really start, is with the language, because what happens in this area is we're all using words that we think we know, but sometimes we're using them incorrectly. So I thought it was worth taking a few minutes to get us all on the stage with the lingo. So the first thing up there is this term, the endocannabinoid system, and I'm sure you've seen this. When you see the acronym ECS, that's the shortcut for endocannabinoid system. What is it? It is this system within our bodies that, the analogy I like to use for this, it's kind of like the operating system on your laptop. It's the underlying system that makes everything else hum really smoothly.
I thought you said your friend said she was gonna call me on my phone.
I think we have somebody who's not muted. If somebody could just mute, that would be great. Thanks. So the endocannabinoid system is something that physicians probably 20, 30 years ago never heard about in medical school. It just wasn't something that we were aware of from a medical perspective. But it is this underlying system that provides really a homeostasis, and it lets your central nervous system, your immune system, it lets all the other systems in your body work appropriately. And I'm going to show you in a minute what I mean by that. We use these terms cannabis, marijuana, hemp. What's the difference? People use these terms interchangeably and they use them incorrectly. So I wanted to take a minute and show you what I mean by this. There's this plant called Cannabis sativa. Okay, think of it as the umbrella plant. And from that, we have something called hemp and something we call marijuana. Now, the difference in these is based on how they're cultivated, on a lot of other factors like their resin content, their THC content. Generally speaking, when we talk about hemp, that is the product we have used for agricultural production. We make fibers out of it and rope and clothing. We're making concrete out of it now. It's an amazing building material. We make hemp seed oil. That's been around for a very long time, right? Hemp seeds, we've been buying those for many years. Marijuana is something that would have more cannabinoids in it. It is the product that we use for more of a therapeutic purpose, okay? It's where we get our THC, our CBD, and about 400 other cannabinoids that we have yet to even really fully research. So I want you to just have a really clear idea of what this umbrella plant is and how it segments out for its different purposes. And I'm going to go into this in just a little more detail in a moment. Now we also, and you see this photo here of a hemp plant. I want you to realize that depending on what part of the plant we're using, changes what we get from it. Now the stalks are typically used for all of those industrial purposes, the building materials that I just mentioned. When we get CBD from a hemp plant, it is typically coming from the leaves, from the flowers of the plant. When we go to buy hemp seed oil, which is something you could go to your health food store 30 years ago and get, right? That's where hemp seed oil comes from the seed of the hemp plant. But that does not contain the CBD that is not the same as CBD oil. Those are two very, very different things. Now, you've also heard the term full spectrum and broad spectrum, and you see that a lot on the labels of CBD products, right? Spend a whole hour just talking about how to evaluate a CBD product and what you should look for. It is very complicated because it's so unregulated right now. So it's really incumbent on you as the consumer to do your homework. And I'm going to give you some really good links at the end of some articles that really spell it out for you. So I'm just kind of hitting the highlights here for you now. Full spectrum. What does that mean? It refers to all of the naturally occurring compounds that are in that plant, including what is probably a very small amount of THC. Yes, a hemp plant has some THC. Now, in the US, the criteria, which is just a governmental benchmark that has been established, is that if something has less than 0.3% THC, we call that plant hemp. If it has over 0.3% THC, it moves over to the marijuana category. Okay, so that's a very easy way to remember the distinction. Hemp, less than 0.3%, marijuana has more than 0.3% THC, and that is what becomes the controlled substance that you can only buy in a dispensary, in a regulated dispensary store. CBD from hemp, it's in every gas station, every supermarket, every multi-level marketing program, and that's what makes it so difficult to evaluate, because the labeling is not regulated, and when studies are typically done, what is listed on the label very often is not what is in the bottle. So I encourage people to call companies, look at the websites, get somebody from customer service on the phone, and really understand the brand that you're buying. Broad spectrum. That means everything that is naturally occurring, all the compounds, the terpenes, the cannabinoids, but with the THC has been removed completely. Okay, so by most people's standards, buying a full spectrum product would be preferable because it has all the goodies in there. The term decarboxylation or decarb, you've probably seen that. And what that really means is that the cannabis has been activated, okay? It's been activated, and it's been activated with heat. So you've probably seen that people use raw, fresh cannabis leaves to juice, and they drink them in the morning, right? And you might be thinking, oh my God, aren't you stoned all day? Well, no, you're not, because the THC that is in those raw, fresh cannabis leaves has not been activated by heat. It hasn't been decarbed. It's the form that we called THCA. So when we put that under heat, that's when it becomes the THC that then provides the psychoactive aspect of it. So if you've been wondering how people can just juice and drink fresh cannabis leaves all morning long, it's perfectly fine. There's no psychoactivity to it. There is a whole alphabet soup of cannabinoids, and the ones, of course, that and talk about, they have the most research done, is of course CBD, THC. But there's a whole stream of them that have a lot of research behind them, CBN, CBG, and all of these have their own little nuance. Some are more appropriate for managing pain. Some are more appropriate for managing things like anxiety, some for sleep. So if you go into a dispensary that has a knowledgeable staff, these are the kinds of questions that you should be asking them, and they should be able to give you the answers. You walk in and you say, you know, I have this, this, and this problem. What do you recommend and why? Ask why. So the good dispensaries have a well-trained staff, and they will be able to answer your questions. So this is really about you just going in and learning how to be a more informed consumer. Terpenes. These are the things that don't get talked about a lot, but wow, are they the goodies in this plant? These are the aromatic oils. They're the foundation of what we know as aromatherapy. Now, aromatherapy has been used for years therapeutically, right? There are things like myrcene and linalool that we find in lavender. Myrcene is in mangoes. Things like limonene that are in the rinds of lemons and limes. These terpenes are also found in cannabis. Look, after all, this is plant medicine. This is no different than using ashwagandha or holy basil or any other herbal medicine that we might use. The problem with cannabis is that it happens to make you high, and therein lies the rub with people's worry about it. I already talked about the hemp seed oil versus CBD oil. They are two completely different things. And just to say a word about Delta 8, because it is everywhere and anywhere these days. And it's being sold readily in the open market because of what I'll call a regulatory loophole. And I think we're going to see some changes occurring with this very quickly. And I put this link on here so you can read up a little bit more. But essentially, the reason why it's so readily available right now, and it does have a psychoactive component to it, is because it's actually synthesized from CBD that comes from hemp. And that is a legal, readily available product to sell. So it sort of got on the market through this backdoor loophole. Really, there's just no other way for me to explain it. It is synthesized from CBD, and it does have a therapeutic value. It acts very much like THC therapeutically, and it will provide a high. So just know what you're buying. And I know right now, because this is such an unregulated product, a lot of what is on the market right now, it's a lot of garbage. So please, please be very careful if purchasing a Delta 8 product. Okay, so we already looked at that. Just watching my time. Just worth talking about the different delivery systems. One is not better than the other. It just depends on what you need. Things that go through immediately through our bloodstream, like smoking or vaping, have a very immediate onset response. So if you're in a lot of pain and you need immediate relief, this is something you may want to consider. Versus edibles, because they're metabolized like food through the liver, they have a much longer and slower onset. We've all heard stories about this. Takes much longer to feel the effects, but the effect stays with us a lot longer. Tinctures typically are used, the term is called sublingual, right underneath the tongue. That has kind of a mid-range absorption. And topicals, of course, are something we use on our skin that do not provide any psychoactivity. So what a lot of people find is that using a combination of these, for example, if you have a real problem sleeping, well, you may want to have a quick vape toke to get yourself to sleep, but maybe you want to also take an edible to have a longer onset to stay asleep. This depends on what your problem is. So there's no right or wrong, and there's a lot of trial and error involved here. It's not like a prescription drug where you get the bottle, it tells you how many to take and how often. It's a lot of trial and error. So I always caution people, don't get discouraged when you say, well, this just doesn't work for me. You just haven't found the sweet spot yet for your particular body. Now, I think it's worth taking a look at the myriad of conditions that cannabis has application for. And it's very interesting to me as a dietitian that the same conditions that respond to cannabis also respond to nutrition therapy. So all of these things that you see here would respond very well to a tailored nutrition therapy program. And cannabis also can work with a lot of these. Now, a lot of people may say, well, oh my gosh, how could this plant work on so many different and varied ways in the body? I mean, we can treat our insomnia with it. We can treat our anxiety with it. We can treat G problems. How does this one plant really factor in across the whole body? Well, here's why. And this is the best way, I think, for you to visualize it. We have these receptors in our body. There's two primary types of receptors, CB1 and CB2. And you see the little colored magnets there, yellow and red for our illustration purposes here. And you can see how these receptors are strewn throughout the body. However, if you look at the yellow ones, the CB1 receptor, you see a lot of them are congregated up here in the brain and in our central nervous system. The CB1 receptor has a great affinity for THC. So that is why we find the high. THC impacts the central nervous system. It affects our motor skills. This makes logical sense. You see
Hey everyone. So did Donna drop off? Yeah, okay. we were trying to figure out. So let's give her a moment. Let me reach out to her. Take a potty break, make some tea. Let me connect with her. Okay, it looks like she is getting back. Welcome back, Donna. You're still muted. Hold on one second.
Can you hear me now?
Can you say something?
Can you hear me now?
Hello, hello. Yes,
Okay.
you're back.
I lost my internet connection.
I see that.
Oh man, I can't believe that. Okay.
That's good old technology.
Oh geez. I hope everyone didn't hear me cursing.
I had to check my mute too. I was like, what the hell's going on? Is it me? Is it her?
You disabled the screen sharing, Melissa, I think. Could
Let me
you
help
get
you.
me
Sorry.
back to that, please? Thanks.
There we go.
Sorry, guys.
No worries.
There we, okay.
Really into that slide, so.
Okay. Okay, here we are. So I think where we dropped off was the point here is these receptors are what's responsible for the ability of these cannabinoids to lock on in so many different parts of the body, thus influencing so many different health conditions. So when you see it like this, I think it really helps to drive that concept home. And so you begin to understand why and how it works in so many different ways. So again, you'll have these slides, so you can go back to these certainly at some other time. Okay. Now why won't it let me? It's not letting me. Hang on here. I think I know what happened with the screen share. Okay, we're going to go down. Okay. Okay. I can't seem to get this to be full screen, guys, but I hope you can read this. I just want to say a word about this concept of drug interactions with cannabis, because for a very long time, you know, people were told, oh, it's fine, there's no drug interactions. That is not true. So if you are taking medication of any sort, do your homework on this one. And this is a really good link here to read up on this. There's something called the P450 enzyme family that really can influence and interact not only with drugs, but with cannabis. And so, as a general rule of thumb, if you're taking a medication that has a contraindication for grapefruit, and I think we're all familiar with that, we've seen that plenty of times on the prescription label, that is probably a drug that may also have an interaction with cannabis. So don't let anybody tell you that, oh yeah, it's okay, no problem, because it can be an issue, and particularly if you're taking more than one drug. So this is some of the reading that I want to leave you with. Project CBD is a great website that does their homework. It's scientifically sound, and the articles are written for the lay person. Now, I could have given you a bunch of links to Pubmed with lots of research articles, and your head would have been swimming. These are topics, and there's a ton of articles, lots of content, but these are topics that are related to some of the things that I just talked about tonight that I think you would find interesting. One of the things we didn't touch on, but this is a group of women, I thought this topic will be of interest, is the notion of using cannabis for sexual health. Very interesting topic. And there's a lot more research being done on this. This is a great article to read. Some tips: how do you evaluate a CBD brand when you're looking at the enormous selection in front of you? Where do you start? This whole idea of really integrating cannabis with the right kind of diet, I think that's worth going back to. I'm biased because I'm a nutritionist, but I think you'll find it interesting. And then also, because so much of our immune system operates out of the condition of your microbiota in the gut is so important to your immunity, and how cannabis can help healthy that up is another topic that is really worth learning more about. So, what are some next options to explore if you want to go a little bit deeper on this? Well, obviously, our program at the Academy, if somebody is really into this and you're thinking maybe about wanting to be a holistic cannabis practitioner, a lot of our students have taken the program, taken the exam, and then use this as a way to really build their business or start a new business. I've had a lot of people who are consumers who just have turned their health around and turned their life around and really want to work in advocacy. And so they feel like they need a little more scientific training and foundation. So this becomes almost a new career path for them. So that is a live link where you can always contact me and I can, get you connected. The Cannabis Kitchen Cookbook, for those of you who are foodies, this is a book that I had the privilege of being a contributor to, and it came out a couple of years ago. It's beautifully photographed, and even if you didn't infuse these recipes, it's one of the few cookbooks that I've seen that actually focuses on health. I mean, I think we're way past the day of, the pot brownie stoner cookbooks, and we're seeing much better recipe usage. And this one, I think, does the plant justice. I have some of these, but they're in Colorado. If anybody wanted one, just email me and we can figure that out. The other thing I wanted to tell you a little bit about is a new venture of mine, which is the Open Mind Women's Adventure Trips. Now, this doesn't have anything to do with cannabis, but it has everything to do with women's wellness. And I think I know for me and a lot of the women that I talk to, after being locked up for so long, I think we're yearning for a lot of connection with like-minded women. So I am doing our first trip coming up in October and wanted to let you know about it. This is sort of a highlight of the itinerary. I've done this trip, and I'm using a family member who has been working and living down there for a very long time. They are a solid Costa Rican family. We're going to be rafting in and out of an eco lodge that's along the Pecode River in the rainforest. Super fun thing to do. We'll be going to the Caribbean as well, staying in one of those bungalows that you see at the bottom. We're doing a cacao farm tour with a chocolate tasting, some yoga classes, a massage in the rainforest, and really handling all the ground transportation to take people to all of these places. So what I really want to do is get like-minded women together to have time to have fun, but also to reconnect and think about your personal goals, your professional goals, to have time to reflect and do something for yourself, because God knows we've all been locked up probably with our kids and taking care of people. And, it's something that I want to start doing for other women. And I think that we all can really use this. So if this is something that interests you, please email me. This here is a live link for it. And I know Melissa was kind enough to put the link also in a thank you email that's going out after this. That's my phone number. And there's an early bird special, $100 discount till July 15th. So that is what I wanted to share with you tonight. So I'm going to stop talking that right now, and I'm going to take the slides off. And if there are some questions, I know Melissa I don't know whether things have been put up in the chat box or how you want to handle this, Melissa, but I see we've got about 10 minutes left.
Yeah, so I'm giving everyone the ability to unmute themselves, and if anybody has specific questions, please feel free. Or if you're not comfortable with talking, you can type it in the chat box. And I want to encourage everyone, like, this is a really strong foundation for you to start to make some decisions around an additional pillar of your care, which is incorporating marijuana use, or hemp. You get to choose. So the slides Donna has offered to share,
And
and
I'm going to put my email here again, just so people have
okay.
it, even though it's on the slides. But in order to get the slides, you need my email.
So the slides are not connected with the thank you email. And the thank you email that you'll receive tonight will be all of Donna's direct connection links. So if you want to ask her deeper questions, or if you have a health condition that you're curious about working with her with, also this amazing retreat link will be in there as well. So my thing is, though, is this is a really great gift. There's some really good information in there to get you empowered to start making some choices and decisions around how you want to incorporate marijuana into your health care. And I just want to say thank you again for that, Donna.
You're
Um,
welcome.
do we have any?
I would like people to just, don't be intimidated by this if you're totally new to this, because using a product like CBD, I call it the decaf version, and it's perfectly good and legit, and it's got value, and it's a good entry point for a lot of people. And particularly, I think, for folks that may be listening and thinking about this for a parent or someone that may be older than them, that they have some concerns about the psychoactivity aspect of it. It's a great entry point. I just really caution you, as I said earlier, because there's so many products out there. It kind of reminds me of go in the nutrition world when, fish oil was all the rage, and, there's always the darling item that makes, the big splash on the scene, on the health scene. And there's just a lot of stuff out there in the marketplace. And so right now, it really does require you to do your due diligence and really research the products.
I'm curious in regards to to sleep. I've recently started using CBN edibles, and I'm loving it. What I guess what helpful tips do you have? Because I keep looking at different brands, and I feel like it's all over the place. Is there something specific to look for? Because I actually think I like using the CBN more so than using melatonin. I feel very refreshed when I wake up in the morning, and I get a nice slow drift off to sleep. But I'm just
Right.
curious about the different brands.
Well, and Melissa, that's a great question, but I am, where you are in California, I don't know what all the brands are that are being sold there. And so that's, again, part of the challenge in even giving people guidance, brand guidance, is these brands vary. What's available in the California market is different than what I see in Colorado and what's available here in Florida. But I'm glad you brought up the CBN, because as I mentioned a little earlier, there's all these other cannabinoids, and CBN is one of them, that they all have a different kind of niche purpose. And so, if you're working with a dispensary where they know their stuff, really can and should be a really good reference point. And if you're somebody who's just starting out, and you're a little more experienced, obviously, Melissa, in this, but for other people who are some guidance beyond that, I know, just having trained a lot of these people, that there's coaches now who do have some training in this. And so if you're looking to work with somebody to give you our direction on this, seek out a health coach or a nurse, somebody who is promoting their services as being cannabis competent. And I think that kind of assistance can really be very helpful with the products that are available in your marketplace.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Donna, I have a question. This is Vivian. So I'm really new to this. So I saw in one of the slides, you mentioned that it says that it can help Alzheimer's. So how does it help them? Do they remember things after they take it? Like, I'm just like,
All right.
I'm really new to this, so I don't know.
Well, cannabis, as you also saw on that slide, helps with other, what we call mood disorders, things like depression and anxiety, ADHD. We kind of put a lot of these into the category of mood disorders. And of course, there is such a huge spectrum in the world of dementia and Alzheimer's, and where somebody may be on that spectrum. There is some work that has been done that shows that some patients do experience, I do not want to give you in any way the impression, the cure-all for Alzheimer's, because it's not. But with some cognitive improvement, let me put it that way, with improving some motor functions, with some recall, with some of the very basic kinds of functions that people often lose with Alzheimer's, it can be beneficial. Now, again, that is something, depending if somebody's on medication, I would tread very carefully with that. And there are some really good research articles. If you are interested in this, and you like reading research articles, I would go to Pubmed. It is a free depository where all of the research articles that are peer-reviewed, published in the world reside. And many of them you can read the abstracts, and some of them you can read the whole article. That would be a good place to go look for more, kind of do more of a deep dive on that subject.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, I have a question.
Yeah.
You mentioned early on when you were starting your presentation and that you have read historically from like Vedic texts and in Ayurveda that cannabis was used historically. So I was just wondering if you would be able to point me in the direction of those resources or a website or a book or somewhere I could dive into that a little bit deeper.
What I was referring to were actually two of the modules we have in our academy that were delivered actually by a very well-known yogi. He's an Indian gentleman, and he started, oh God, I'm blanking on the name. It's a very famous and well-known tea brand that we all buy. It's everywhere. Oh, my mind just went blank on that. But anyway, so there's a whole list of research articles that he provided to us, and that's something that is contained within our academy program. It's not really something I can pull out, but I would suggest to you that if you Google really Ayurvedic uses of cannabis, there's a lot of really good content. And if you look at sites actually that are generated from people in herbal medicine practitioners are quite experienced in this area because it is part of ancient Chinese medicine. So there's a lot of really good data on it. Off the top of my head, I don't have a resource that I can tell you.
Okay, no worries. I have another question. I think in one of your early slides, I think it maybe had like the old apothecary cannabis bottles.
Mm-hmm.
At the bottom of the slide, I think it said like age 19, medical 36. Like, I was just wondering, like, what did that mean? Did that mean like you needed to be 19 to 36 to be able to
I don't know. I have to
therapy?
admit, I never noticed that. I never noticed that on those labels.
It was the
No, it
19,
was it's one of your bullet points.
Chantal, it's the 19 states that is
Oh,
for
yes.
adult
Yeah,
use.
yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Oh, okay. I thought you were referring to something that was on the label of those old jars. Exactly. That's how many states currently have adult use and medical cannabis legalized in some form right now.
Wonderful. Does anybody else have any questions?
We're all good?
I think we're good.
Okay.
So once again, thank you everyone for showing up. I hope that this gave you some food for thought. And once again, to drill home that it's not, the silver bullet, as she stated, which we know in Banyan, we try to push for that whole umbrella of wellness. So I hope you explore more into this. I hope some of you are able to go to Costa Rica and tell me all about it because it sounds amazing. And then please make sure to look at our upcoming events. We've got some really fun stuff coming in. Please, when you're signing up, make sure that you're reading if it's an in-person event or if it's an online event. There's been a little bit of excitement over some signing up and it's actually in person and people were thinking it was online. So reading is fundamental. And then if you have the means, we are a nonprofit. 100% of donations go right back into programming, so we keep bringing you these wonderful events. And you can do that by visiting banyanwomen.org/donate. If you don't have the ability to do that, Amazon Smile is a great way to support us. You choose us as your nonprofit of choice, and every time you're refilling your whatever and buying this whatever through Amazon, we get a little bit of that change towards a nice check at the end of the year that helps us keep up with programming. So we'd appreciate that. And Donna, thank you so much. I love everything that you brought to us today, and
Thank
I
you.
can't wait to read the articles, and hopefully we can see you again. Everyone, please take care and have a great night. Make sure to email her for those slides.
Yep. Thanks, everybody. I look forward to hearing from you. Bye.
Bye.